Hello, Night Nation. I'm Trey Strelko. Welcome to the Sons of UCF Live, joined as always by the dynamic duo. Hello, Adam and Mike.
Hi, Trace. Mike, what? Are you okay?
Yeah, I think I started something new. You know, Collinsworth has that slide in or whatever. I just had a new thing, the spin to join the show. What do you think?
Loving it. Yeah.
Good.
Loving it.
Good to have you with us, Mike. Good also to see head coach Gus Malzahn back this week. We've been following that story for several weeks. Coach Malzahn addressing the media, meeting with his team. It's been several weeks. Positive news. His wife, Christy, back home from the hospital. Good to hear from Coach Malzahn, and you could tell he was glad to be back in his element.
Yeah, I mean, just good to see Coach again. Obviously, the things he's been going through personally, you have to feel for him trying to balance priorities of life and work and everything in between. So good to be back. I assume, I hope for him. Sometimes getting back into a normal routine and talking about things normally again helps a little bit. So I guess the best news out of that press conference isn't about transfers, and it isn't about scheduling. It isn't about anything else other than he's back and his wife is doing better. And I think that's the best news any Knight fans had these last couple of weeks.
It's good to have the main guy back, though. It's got to feel good for everybody else in the program, the football team. Things feel a little bit more normal now with the head coach back in place, doing the press conferences, things like that. I think everybody feels a little bit better.
You know, Coach Malzahn doesn't really give you much in these press conferences. He's better than Coach Heupel was, certainly. But if you parse his words and you find some things, I keep thinking it's going to be an interesting quarterback battle as we get ready for spring camp in just a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, John Rice Plumlee did not come here to sit around and not compete. We know Mikey Keene had a relatively solid freshman season, but I think, you know, he said it in the press conference, Trace, which is competition, and having more competition is good. He was referring to kicking at that point, but I think the same comment holds true about the quarterback play. Maybe this elevates Mikey Keene's play. Maybe this gets Mikey into the weight room this offseason. Maybe he works a little bit on that throwing motion. And obviously JRP brings a new wrinkle, but he's playing baseball as we learned. He's hopefully going to play baseball as we learned. So how does that help his development? I think you're setting it up for a nice fodder for us podcasters over the next couple of months to have something to talk about every week, because outside of that, we're stuck with Mike spinning his chair. So the competition helps out from that standpoint, at least.
If I'm Mikey Keene, I'm happy that this guy's going to play baseball. It gives me an opportunity, even more reps and more opportunities to impress the coaching staff and set myself even further apart from these guys, learning the playbook, getting more comfortable with the receivers. That's something Plumlee's going to miss out on, playing baseball. I understand he loves playing baseball. I can't argue with him there, but that's going to hurt him in the long run when it comes down to fall camp.
Well, when he spoke with the media recently, he said that he was balancing all of it. And of course, Coach Greg Lovelady, UCF baseball head coach, said that the NCAA has not yet approved the waiver. So he's practicing with the team, but no waiver that he'll actually be a part of the team. At one point, Coach Malzahn used a phrase talking about you can never have enough quality depth. When it came to my turn to ask a question, I said, but are you satisfied with your depth? And he interjected quality depth. Which I thought was interesting. And he talked about that quality depth in the quarterback room.
I mean, you know, you look at what Mikey did last year, and he was learning on the go, and he did a wonderful job. And then the two new guys coming in, and Parker did some good things with his feet. Joey played, so it's going to be exciting spring and exciting fall.
Joey's a guy.
Parker has feet. That's fantastic.
Joey played.
Yeah. I don't think he finished. It was a non sequitur to the next thought there. But it's interesting. So if you had to think about this from a bigger picture, he also talked in that presser, not in this clip that we played tonight, Trace, how he recruited John Rice Plumlee at Auburn, went after him hard, wanted him as a quarterback. He saw what he did in the SEC. He was very, very effusive in his praise of that. He did not recruit Mikey Keene. Mikey kind of got thrown into the fire. I don't know if you should read anything into that. I don't know if that's a tell, but he definitely was very upfront about having a lot of familiarity with JRP. Not saying that's the leader in the clubhouse, but Gus obviously sees something that he says, this guy can help my team. How that manifests will be interesting, but I don't know that I'm giving him the nod. But if you read between the lines, Gus wanted him before, wanted him again, got him. It's going to be hard to tell me that he's not going to find a way to use him.
Gus has always liked his quarterbacks to be able to run, right? Historically, his teams in Auburn, Cam Newton, guys like that just fits his system better. Even when he doesn't have a quarterback that can run, he has a wild night quarterback that he brings in to run. It was Gatewood last year. It was Parker Navarro there at the goal line towards the end of the year. So Plumlee fits the system better, and it doesn't matter that Keene wasn't his guy. Keene is the guy that has the experience here right now, and he's number one in the clubhouse for me right now.
Mikey Keene is number one for you.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's still interesting to see how much John Rice Plumlee, his ability to throw. There's no doubt he's going to be a part of the offense, and we know he can run. Can he beat out Mikey for that starter role? I saw a comment, I think it was Jason earlier, saying his money's on Thomas Castellanos. For this season, I'd ask Jason, does he mean he's going to win the battle this season and that we're going to go with a true freshman in the fall? It's hard for me to see that.
Yeah, I mean, look, Castellanos seems like a really good prospect, good player. I would think that he's firmly in the third position as you think about these three, at least as it stands today. But to be fair, you get on the field, you never know what happens. We all would have thought it was crazy to think that one by the name of Dylan Gabriel would have started in that 2019 season, because we would have probably assumed that either Brandon Winbush or Daryl Mack would have had that spot, and out of nowhere, here comes DG. So I guess you never say it's impossible. You would think it's a bit of a longer road ahead. That's probably a bridge too long, but nothing's impossible, unfortunately, or fortunately, in football.
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen. Go back to the 2010, 2011 season. We thought for sure Godfrey was going to be the guy for the next 4 years at quarterback, right? Winning the conference championship his freshman year. And then by the second year, he's not even starting every game anymore. So who knows what's going to happen after this year.
Yeah, there's going to be several position battles that are going to be interesting to play out during spring camp. Of course, we're going to get 10 minutes every couple of weeks, so we're not going to really learn anything. We'll parse all of that video, though. We've been talking about the defense the last couple of weeks. I want to shift over talking about the linebackers. I asked, how do you grade the linebackers from 2021? 67% said good, 27% said fair. No votes for excellent. I thought an interesting question came in the mailbag, but appropriate for this. Mary Ashbaugh6 asked, are there any other linebackers we're not looking at that could transfer in right now? She said, do we need more depth there? And that is interesting. You know, UCF has lost some of those players that you would have thought would have been a part of this team, mainly Tatum Bethune.
Yeah, referencing the portal, I mean, yes now, and probably yes again after spring camp. I think there's more opportunity for that. The depth there is probably a little lighter than we would want it to be. We have some guys coming in, and Terence Lewis and Katie McDaniel, transfers from other schools, although Lewis has not yet stepped foot on the field in his college career. Two kids that UCF was really high on, and Quade Mosier and Cole Joyce, haven't played a ton. So it's thin. It's inexperienced at that position. So my suspicion would be if somebody pops in the portal, T. Will, the linebackers coach, also, by the way, will certainly have those folks on speed dial for phone calls.
Yeah, you look at the roster right now, Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste is really the only name coming back that we're familiar with. The other guys you mentioned have been there, but we haven't seen them play. I like the true freshmen coming in, Cam Moore, TJ Bullard. Maybe these guys get a shot to get some playing time.
Yeah, it does, though. If you're looking at the defense, we talked about the D-line last week, look at the secondary next week. It does seem the thinnest position group, though, as you go into spring camp in a couple of weeks.
It does. What's interesting, though, is UCF's been playing a bit of a two linebacker set and more five defensive backs. So do we only need two of these guys? I mean, I'm not sure exactly how T. will place that last year, or this year rather. Last year we had the the night position, which was Bryson Armstrong, and then transitioned into Justin Hodges. So perhaps that's the same play this year, and you need two of this group that's on the screen right now to step in. Obviously, JJB being one of those primarily, but really the next 4 or 5 guys up for the other spot. But Then you have a team like Navy. You have a team that runs the football a ton. And obviously we don't always play Navy every year, but that's where you need more depth in the linebacker spot. So this is certainly the thinnest group that we've gone through thus far. And I would think that not all spots were filled. There was a lot of conversation. T. Will specifically said last week at the signing day press conference that you keep some spots available for other guys down the road. I think that's a fortuitous comment, thinking through what he may look at, particularly when it relates to linebacker.
And though we only may have 2 guys on the field at a time, we're going to need 4 or 5 guys ready to play, rotating in. These guys cannot play every snap. And then, injuries happen all the time. We may lose one of these guys early in the year, and then what? So we're going to need a mix of all these guys, the transfers, the incoming freshmen, and the returning guys.
We may lose guys. Does that happen? It couldn't possibly happen again in back-to-back years, right? Like it did in 21.
I mean, this is a wild, wild west of college football. It's only anything's possible. You can wake up tomorrow and see 3 guys in the portal. So who the heck knows?
That's fair.
It is fair. And of course, who better to talk about linebackers than a former UCF linebacker? Antoine Poe joins us now on the Sons of UCF Live. Antoine, welcome in this evening.
Hey, how you doing? Can you hear me?
Can hear you just fine. Welcome in. We're talking about the linebackers. UCF has lost some guys, namely Tatum Bethune. You heard Coach Malzahn at his presser this week say you can never have enough quality depth. It looks like this position group, though, a little thin, maybe going into 2022.
Yeah, they're looking pretty thin and young. A lot of guys don't have as much experience as the guys that we had left, like Bethune's gone. Then you had Gilliard who left. They kind of put us in a bind right here. But we still got a lot of talent coming in, like with the Cam Moores, the TJ Bullards. Terence Lewis is another one that kind of stands out to me. He's supposed to be a 5-star, and I'm looking forward to see what he can do for us. And then you got KD McDaniels coming in. But then you also got Bryson Armstrong, who's played some. He seems like he's a pretty experienced guy. And Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste, who's going to provide the leadership for the defense because he's played a lot more ball than most of the guys. So, yeah.
I like your hat, by the way.
Yeah, I love it. I need another one.
What's surprising about the hat is that Mike and Adam, Mike in particular, promises them to a lot of people, and you actually have one of them. So anybody watching now that was promised a hat by Mike is wondering where their hat has gone.
Yeah, Mike said this to me a while back, man.
It looks good on you, man. And everybody on the screen is wearing one except for Trace. So
I missed the guy. You got the shirt. Got the shirt.
Yeah. Antoine, you mentioned some of the young guys, particularly the true freshmen and TJ Bullard and Cam Moore. From your experience, obviously playing linebacker, how hard is it for a true freshman to step off a high school football field right on to college and compete, particularly as a linebacker? Obviously, size, speed, strength. Do you think it's plausible that these kids can play nowadays as true freshmen?
Yeah, I did it. My freshman year, I played a lot. Like I earned my time on the field. You just got to have that dog in you, man. Like if you got dog in you, you're going to see the field. You can't deny a dog. You're going to try to get that kid on the field to get that experience as much as possible until he develops and matures enough to where he can be out there with more time. But I think some of these guys got some dog in them, and you're going to see them out on the field. So
What's the biggest learning curve, though, coming from high school to college as a true freshman? What's the biggest thing that they have to kind of learn quickly in order to compete?
Well, understanding what's going on around you, being able to understand schemes and checks and all that, because that was kind of like a difficult thing for me when I first started out as a freshman. I kind of was a guy that was flying around. I was a see-ball, hit ball. That was what Coach Chizik called me, because for one, I hadn't had a lot of experience playing linebacker. That was like literally my second year playing linebacker in my life, and when I got to college, because I was a running back and I played some defense end. They kind of moved me all over the place in high school, but I really didn't understand defense as a whole. I started to gain my knowledge about defense when I got to college, and it didn't click for me until my junior year. So just understanding the defense and knowing what's going on. And today, in this day and age, these kids have a lot more knowledge than what we did back then. Because like some people like, hey, get out there and go and hit. But now these kids are a bit more educated about what's going on the field. So the learning curve may be, the window may be small for them because these guys learn fast.
When you're evaluating linebackers, you're watching these guys play. What are the characteristics or the traits that you look for to make up a really good linebacker?
somebody who never gives up. Like if you can be out on the field, if it's a blown coverage or a blown play, what covers that up is effort. If you got a lot of effort, if you miss a tackle but you're bouncing up and you're still flying around on the field trying to hunting for the ball, that's going to cover up anything. Just that effort. Like I said, dog.
You talked, as Adam asked you, about the freshmen coming in, a couple of transfers coming in as well. Same advice, though, basically what you're saying there, that the learning curve, depending on how quickly they come into it, they could adapt quickly, could pick up on the defense fairly quickly. Yeah,
well, if you look at the defense that T. Will is running, it's really only 2 linebackers out on the field. So really, and then with the D-line in front of them, the D-line that we have with the depth that we have on the D-line is going to kind of cover those guys up a little bit. So that may kind of help them out as far as like when it comes to learning what's going on. So I think these guys will be all right.
Antoine, recognizing that you're much bigger than me, so I asked this question very nicely. The linebacker position, like you mentioned, UCF's only running 2 linebackers out there. A lot of schools are now doing a whole different lineup and more defensive backs, more guys to cover receivers. Is the linebacker position, as you know it, changing? Is that going to be a position that kind of morphs into something completely different than what it was when you played?
You're going to have to be an athlete. Is what it's really boiling down to, because if you look at all the offenses, like people want to put points up on the board, so they're going to be trying to score and they're going to try to score fast. So what does that do to the linebacker position? It's not going to be the traditional Sam, Mike, and Will. No, you're going to have more of a hybrid type linebacker out there, somebody who can almost pass as a safety. I mean, but you're just going to have to be a flat out athlete. So you just going to have to step your game up.
You were a tackling machine the years you were at UCF, 100 tackles almost every year. How much does that depend on the guys up front setting things up for you? The UCF defensive line is a lot more experienced than the linebackers. How much is that going to help out these young guys?
Well, the defensive line is going to help out a lot with these young guys. So it's going to I think it's going to actually make it a little bit easier. When you have a good defensive line in front of you, it kind of covers you up for wherever you're lacking. So, I think these guys are not going to have too much of a problem because of the dogs they got in front of them. So,
what do you make of the transfer portal era now? Coach Malzahn announced on early signing day 14 high school recruits, comes back, announces 8 transfers coming in through the portal, 4 on offense, 4 on defense. Is certainly a different era of college football.
Yeah, it's a different era, which kind of makes it a little bit harder for the high school kids. Those are the guys that I feel for, because most coaches are going to go to the transfer portal first. So what does that leave the high school athlete? I say this, and I tell this to my son. I say, if you ever get to the process of recruiting, I say, whatever decision you're going to make for school, you're going to have to make it fast, because those spots are not going to be there like how it was for us, where coaches are waiting for you. No, that time is dead and gone. You got to make your decision to make it now and know where it is that you want to go, and pull the trigger then, because that transfer portal that thing's gonna be overloaded, and you're gonna see a lot of guys in the transfer portal that get left out as well. So I say, whatever decision you make, you better make it and stick with it, because this transfer portal has changed the game.
You mentioned a lot of guys being left out. About 30% of kids that entered the portal have landed on a new school. What position does your son play, and what age is he?
Well, he'll be 13 on Sunday, but he's an athlete. He plays everywhere. And we're trying to figure, he wants to be a running back, but I told him I think he'd be a great 5-star cornerback, but he wants to be a running back. So we'll let him make whatever choice when we cross that bridge when we get there. We're just kind of molding him and shaping him up now.
At 13, he's still got some time to decide on that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, obviously, you're around young kids. Obviously, you're around kids who are playing, going to high school. What's the perception of UCF these days? I know you still live in state. You're still around a lot of programs. What are young kids, high school kids saying about UCF? What's the perception now? Man. And how has that changed from when you were there?
Man, it's changed dramatically. Like, I was telling my wife, like, on this past Saturday, we were down at DR7 with 9 Figure Sports. That's the 7-on-7 team that I'm with. And that's who my son plays for. And we have from 10U all the way up to 18U. And when we went down there and I saw all these UCF shirts on. I'm like, I told my wife, I said, hey, remember it was a time you couldn't even find, people was asking where UCF was. I was like, ain't that in Tampa or somewhere? And now it's like all these kids know about UCF and they're saying that this is where they want to go. It's almost like the sleeping giant has awakened. So it's like night and day compared to when I was coming up.
We spoke to your teammate Rashad Genty this week on our podcast. He had a couple funny stories about Coach Gene Chizik. Do you remember anything about Chizik getting in your guys' faces? He was a fiery guy. Do you remember a time when he got in your face at practice or something?
Well, he never really got in my face personally because he always just called me C-ball. He yelled at me for going in the wrong direction, but he actually created a defense off of something that I did in the game. I think we played against Northern Illinois. It was a blitz for the Sam, and I ended up blitzing the B gap or something. And then he ended up naming a defense based off of something that I did that was wrong, and he ended up turning it into a play. So he would get on us pretty good though, but he would always yell, "That's what I'm talking about, C-ball," because he always called me C-ball.
That's pretty good. Was that pretty good impression that you gave there? That's pretty good.
I guess so.
Super Bowl this Sunday. Handicap it. Who do you got?
I'm going with the Rams. I'm going with the Rams this Sunday. I think if you can't guard Cooper Kupp, because he seems to pop open everywhere. Like that guy just he's a little slippery little thing. And if they can't slow down that offense, good luck, Bengals.
Adam, I think you've got queued up that the play, of course, that made Joe Burrow who he is today. Do you have that queued up?
I do. Let's
take a look at that play again.
I don't know if anybody knows this, but the D-line's job is to get the quarterback no matter where he's at, no matter where he's on the field. One D lineman needs to go get the quarterback. And when we do a stunt like that, if the ball's thrown to my side, I'm in charge of quarterback. So obviously when I saw the pick, I was looking for him, and I found him.
Were you able to see his soul leaving his body when you hit him? Like, what was that actual moment like?
His eyes were closed, and he was screaming. That's all I remember. I thought he was knocked out. I mean, his eyes were closed. I thought I definitely knocked him out, but his eyes were definitely closed, and he was screaming.
That's a pretty good soundbite right there. It made Joe Burrow who he is. Do you like that? That UCF's probably going to get a little play all week from this?
Oh yeah. Hey, Kanye, he decleated Burrow. Hey, he put him on his back. It was dirty, but it is what it is. Welcome to football.
You got to like the Rams defense though in this one, don't you?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Jalen Ramsey, that defensive line, they get after it. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen this Sunday. So I personally, I told somebody, I said, man, I think the Rams might blow them out, but I don't know.
Antoine, how would you like to be playing in this era of football right now? Right, you were, like Mike said, you were 100 tackles a year kind of guy. You are a hard hitter, but you said earlier it's athleticism, it's covering receivers. Would you like to play defense in this era right now?
To be honest, in this era right now, I'll probably be suspended from a lot of games because the stuff that because I was just getting after it. All it was, I was just hunting the ball, and I was very aggressive and vicious. So I think I probably would have been suspended half of the game. I don't think I belonged in this era.
You're a fan like us now. I know you made it to a few games this year. I think you were sitting in the cabana for a game or two, right? Mm-hmm. What's something you want to see improved for the game day experience as a fan in that cabana? As a fan,
game day experience, I don't know, because my kids love it. Like, we love everything about it. My kids get excited about coming to UCF games. Even people that I brought with me to the games, they want to come back. So I can't say from my end that there's anything that needs to be improved, because every time my kids come or somebody that I bring, they always ask me, hey, when are we going back to that UCF game, man? That was the best game I ever been to in my life. Like, I've never experienced anything like that. So people get excited when they come. And I tell people all the time, I say, hey, if you want to see like a college football atmosphere, come to the bounce house. I say, boy, I say it's like something you never experienced. I say, and you get in there and you just all of a sudden you just get caught up in the spirit of what's going on in there. So we enjoy it every time we come.
Robert and Tara saying it well on screen. Antoine Poe, a great night. Also, Robert inviting you to the next Suns tailgate. Let me tell you, having been to those, Mike makes a pretty good potato salad.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to try that out.
If I make, you mean I buy it at Publix.
All right. Publix makes a pretty good potato salad. Antoine Poe, thank you so much for spending a few moments with us on the Sons of UCF
I
Live.
appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you much.
Thank you.
All right.
Great night on the screen. Good guest to have on, and enjoyed listening to Antoine.
Well, Trace, and you can hear more of Antoine. So a fun fact, Mike and I did like 96 shows before that are no longer available on the internet. One of them was
How can
with
it be not available on the internet, Adam?
We'll do that in the after show and the post game show. But after this, 9:15 on the Sons of UCF YouTube channel exclusively, we're going to re-release the interview we did with Antoine Poe. And if you're not familiar with his story, he played a bunch of games. He was, had some hard luck injuries, and he suffered a really almost career-ending catastrophic injury in late in his career. And it was a pretty harrowing experience, and he talks a lot about that in the interview. So 9:15, go to the YouTube channel, the exclusive interview with Antoine Poe. We will re-release that. It's not available anywhere else, so it'll be back out in the public, 9:15. Don't miss it.
Out of the vault.
There's a lot in the vault, Trace. Mike and I, we've been going through the vault. There's a lot of stuff in there. Again, hit us on the post-game show. We'll talk all about that.
I think people want us to start running the post game, but that's got to go behind a paywall or something, right? That's what's got to happen there. Men's basketball, they get the win this week against Wichita State, up 14 at the half, and Wichita tightened it in the second half. Knight's now 6-6 in the AAC, 14-8. It was a game in which Brandon Mahan was hitting some threes, 19 points. They've got the rescheduled game with Tulsa coming up on Monday night. Reaction, got to get a win, and they took care of the Shockers on Tuesday.
Yeah, it was a good win. We've never beaten Wichita State, so it was good to get that monkey off the back. Obviously, to your point, got a little tight down the end there, but UCF finished the game, and they've been struggling with that in a few games down the stretch. So to finish the game was good. I think we're in a position now where Mike and I talked about this on the show this week. Probably the at-large bid is not in our cards. So what we're going to have to do is go on a pretty nice run here and get some momentum into the conference tournament and potentially win the conference tournament. Winning close games like this, finding ways to beat teams that you don't beat before can hopefully give you that momentum swing to get you build up as you go into the tournament. So I think bigger picture, maybe this gives them a springboard into the future, but it was good to get a good win. They held on a late start. I think that thing didn't end until late in the late in the evening. So it was a late start. The guys kind of woke up late. So kudos on the win. It was a nice one. Obviously, it's been a Jekyll and Hyde season, and this game was kind of a microcosm of all that.
A few winnable games still going on the schedule. The one tough one, obviously, at Houston, but we get Tulsa twice. They've won one game in conference. We got to sweep that series, and we got to win every other game from here on out, in my opinion. The standings in the American is kind of jumbled up from that 3 to 8 spot. I mean, we can move up a couple of spots if we take care of business the next couple of weeks.
And that would be important to do. SMU knocking off Houston last night in AAC play. After this win over Wichita, I asked Coach Dawkins how important it was to bounce back from the Memphis loss. And I thought his answer was curious. Mike, I want your reaction to part of that soundbite when we come out of it.
I was really proud of the way we responded, but I wasn't surprised in how we responded. I knew, you don't know how the game is going to go today, but I knew our guys would come out and play an inspired game. They've never not done that. The Memphis loss was tough. But there were a lot of, some things that we learned from that. Like sometimes you have to go backward to go forward.
What do you think of that, Mike? Sometimes you got to go backward to go forward.
We're very good at that. We've been very good at that this year.
See, that could pay dividends now. That could pay dividends down the stretch.
We're in the same spot where we started at the beginning of the year. Seems like he said we've never played an uninspired game. I don't know if I can agree with that. There's been a couple games this season that's been uninspired, but a win is a win. I will take ugly wins all day, and if a couple of these losses would have been ugly wins, this whole season might look completely different right now.
Yeah, I agree with your uninspired comment, and I think I understand what Coach Dawkins is saying. Is obviously sometimes it has to get ugly before it gets better, but we're not in this position in this time of the season where it can continue to be ugly to get better, right? That's a really good December comment, right? That's a good November comment, but that's not a good early February comment. We don't want to get worse before we get better. At this point, that arrow needs to be pointing upward. We should be peaking and trying to play our best ball. Taking steps backwards in early February in conference play is not going to be a recipe for success. Again, a great win, but I understand his commentary about the team was essentially resilient, I think is what he was trying to get at there, but not the time to be taking steps back and steps forward.
Yeah, and they've got to string together some wins. I don't know about at Tulsa. That's a house of horrors for UCF, but I think you're right there that be a series you want to sweep. Let's bring in BJ Taylor to talk about this one. BJ, welcome in to Suns Live this Thursday. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Good to see you guys.
Good to see you. Get the win over Wichita State. Brandon Mahan with 19, couple of guys in double digits. What do you think of, I don't know if you heard that or if you jumped on in time to hear Coach Dawkins saying, sometimes you have to go backwards to go forwards. And we're talking about, and now you want to be playing your best ball down the stretch.
Yeah, no, certainly. 22 games in, it's time to get this thing cranking and going, right? You definitely don't want to take too many more steps back. So if it happens, it happens. But you certainly don't want that to be the situation, right? So, we saw the Memphis game and we saw how that went at Memphis. We didn't shoot the ball very well. And then you saw last night where we shot nearly 40% from three and, changed the whole trajectory of this team. So, moving forward, I think, it's going to come down to shooting the ball from three and kind of that big three that we have in Mahan and Perry and Darren Green Jr.
BJ, the biggest play probably in that game was the late game and one by Brandon Mahan on the inbound. I assume that's not a called play by Coach Dawkins. So how did Brandon get open on that play? What did you see, and what does that say about his connection with Darius Perry to find him for that late layup?
Yeah, so Brandon kind of came off a screen, came from like the top of the key area, came around to the corner to the top of the key. And, as his defender, you're thinking like, okay, I took away the initial part of the action. I've got him. I took away his corner three ball that he might have wanted to shoot. So your defender kind of relaxes a little bit, gets lazy. And it was a really good job by Brandon, of extending the play, right? It's kind of similar to football. When you see those quarterbacks get out of the pocket and then all of a sudden the receiver, he goes from running a streak down the field and he just turns it, and comes back to the ball and gets open, right? It's pretty impossible for a defender to guard because you just, you kind of relax for a little bit. So it was a great effort by Brandon to kind of take that second effort and make a second play, right? So I really like that play by him. Like you said, it was a huge play in the game. And it kind of, we need more of that kind of stuff, right? We need more of, again, like I talked about last week, where the players have to take ownership and the players have to be the ones to go out there and play, right? Like a coach can't draw that up. The coach can draw up the initial action for you to go to the corner, get the three-point look. But if your defender guards it, it's on the player to say, okay, well, now we're playing pickup backyard basketball, right? I'm going to go cut off and give me a look at the rim. So really big play by Brandon, and moving forward, being a senior veteran, we need more of those kind of the word's slipping my mind, but we need more of those kind of creative plays.
We might have got away with one on that one. I think Mahan actually went out of bounds before he came back in. Was the first one to touch the ball. The people in Wichita are kind of talking about that this morning. No big deal, obviously, right?
So would you like to petition the NCAA?
I was just saying, we got away with it. I'm taking it. But
Actually, Mike, UCF did get away with one. The Mike Eads, the AAC coordinator of men's basketball officiating, said that was a mistake on that play with 26 seconds to go. So according to Mike, we're just give it back to him.
All right, well, we got the Gene's territory right here, Mike.
I'm not giving it back. I'm sure there's been plenty of times where we got in the short end of the stick too. So, but BJ, this team is like two different teams. One team at home and then one team on the road. Is there something we need to change up in the routine when we go on these road trips? Maybe to just mix things up a little bit, or just keep going the way we go?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that you're seeing is we shoot the ball much better at home, right? Like I said, Memphis, we were 7 from 33 from the three-point line, 21%. And at home against Wichita the other night, team shoots 11 of 29. And, 11 of 29 shoots 38%, right? So, literally at home, we made more threes and attempted less threes. So that's that's not usually how it works. You attempt more, usually you make more, right? So I think for us moving forward, we've got to figure out a way to just continue to try to get that 3 ball going, right? That's sort of the identity of this team, right? When this team makes double-digit threes, over 10 threes a game, oftentimes this team comes out with a win. And you see on the road, it's a lot harder to make those shots, for whatever reason. Whether it's the crowd, whether it's noise, whether it's the atmosphere, whether it's not being at Addition Financial, for whatever reason, not shooting the ball as well on the road. So, hopefully we get a swing here where we get some chances to, kind of correct that. I know we have at Houston coming up, which is always going to be a tough environment. And then they finish out in Tulsa and Tulane. So hopefully we can get some momentum going into conference tournament, right? And get some confidence making shots, away from home.
It seems to me, though, a big if that they're going to hit those threes. They're going to hit those threes sometimes. But what happens when they don't hit those threes? They keep still firing them. If you were the coach here, what would you diversify? What would you change up when those buckets are not falling from three?
Yeah, no. Sorry, you kind of broke up a little bit there, Trace. But I think I got most of your question. You were saying if the team isn't making threes, then what can we change to sort of get that going, right? And I mean, ideally, you want to have a balanced team, right? You want to have a team where you don't have to just rely on shooting the ball from deep. You can go inside in the post, or you have guards that are good drivers, finishing at the rim, creating for others, right? But the kind of makeup of this team that we have this year is a 3-point shooting team. Obviously Darren Green is an exceptional shooter. When Brandon scores the majority of his points, it usually comes off shooting jump shots, contested 3-pointers, and Darius Perry, though he can get downhill at times and get to the rim, it's just really more so of a 3-point shooting team, Trace. So, you're kind of going to see that, up and down a little bit, just because no matter who you are, even if you're in the NBA and your team relies so heavily on 3-point shooting, you saw it with the Houston Rockets probably 3 or 4 years ago, and they went like 2 for 30 or whatever in the playoffs because they couldn't make a 3, right? But that was kind of the makeup of their team. That was the style of the game, and that was the way that they played. So for our guys, we just really have to try to get the best looks possible from deep. We have to, continue to try to not just take bad threes, but you want to take good threes, and hopefully that helps the percentages.
BJ, obviously a tough loss at Memphis, right? The ball just not go our way. We got beat pretty handily. But the good news is we turn around, we win against Wichita, right? As a player, how hard is it to shake off a loss like Memphis, right? Where you just know you didn't play well. It just didn't turn in your favor. How hard is it to shake off that kind of loss and get yourself ready for the next one?
Yeah, so believe it or not, usually as a player in a blowout loss like that, a lot of times it's easier to turn the page, Adam. And a lot of times, if it's not something that happens often, like if you get blown out all the time, then, it's a problem. But if you lose one game like that, you lose 90-60 or whatever we lost, you're kind of like, just flush it. We got to flush it because we got beat so bad. A lot of times, Adam, it's the games that come down to like the last few possessions that you lose, right? And if that turns into a trend, if that turns into something that your team does consistently, where maybe it was a 2-point game with 2 minutes to go and then we lost it, all right? And then we come back next week and we're up 3 with 1:30 to go and we lose it. Now it's starting to get in your head, right? Now you start to feel like a little bit hurt. Like why do we always lose close games? But when you lose a game the way we did at Memphis, I think the biggest thing is you're like, well, it wasn't close. They blew us out. We got to flush it. We got to learn what we're supposed to take from it and move forward, right? So for our guys, going into the Wichita game, being back at home, I think they came out they came out with the right attitude. And the biggest thing for this team is they need to put together some sort of consistency, right? We've talked about the majority of the show tonight. I mean, we've seen this sort of roller coaster deal, win 1, lose 2, win 2, lose 1, this thing back and forth, right? You want to see this team put together some consistency. And even if it doesn't result in wins, because, we have a tough, you have Tulsa coming up, but then you have at Houston, right? You want to see this team play consistently good basketball moving forward.
BJ, I have a dumb question for you, which is saying a lot because we've asked you a lot of dumb questions on the show. Yeah. Memphis has the blue-colored basketball court. You guys, obviously, when you played there, you had that quasi-blacktop. Is there anything about the blue-colored court that takes a while to adjust to as a player, or is that just me being a dumb fan thinking there's a distraction there?
No, I think from the TV's perspective. So I watch the game obviously from home as well, and from the TV, it's just not very appealing to the eye. Maybe it takes a while to get used to. I'm not sure if Memphis was trying to be the Boise State of the American or whatever they're trying to do with that court, But as a player, I mean, once you start going up and down, you don't really pay that much attention to it. So, I wish I could say that's what it was, Adam. Like, hey, man, that blue court is tough to play on. Your eyes don't, you have to be used to the blue court. Your eyes can get a little messed up, right? You have to wear contacts. I wish I could tell you anything like that. But, I think from home, it's definitely not as aesthetically pleasing, I think, as Memphis may have hoped. But, I mean, if they want to roll with the Boise State of basketball, then go right ahead.
Adam and I have asked each other this question all season, and I still don't know if we have a real answer to it. But who's the guy on this team you want to have the ball, game on the line? It does not necessarily have to be the leader of the team, but who's the guy you have most confidence in to take that winning shot?
Yeah, right. No, and that's kind of what we've discussed, in terms of taking, close games home. And even when the game starts to get away from us, we don't really have a singular guy right now, right, Mike, that we're going to give the ball to this guy. We're going to put it in his hands, and we're going to sort of, run things around him to even get us back in the game. You'll see us fall down by 7 or 8, and we kind of have to, see who's got it going, whether it's Mahan, whether it's DG, whether it's Darius Perry, we have to kind of find that. So I think to answer your question, I think you've got to, you have to hope that Brandon Mahan is playing well that night, because he's the guy who does the best job of creating his shot off the dribble, and kind of making those difficult shots. Obviously, you want to get Darren Green a look because he's one of the best shooters in the conference. But, Darren, it takes a little more scheme. It takes a little more schematics, and it takes a little bit more of the defense sort of making a mistake to get him open looks, because he's not a guy you can just put the ball in his hands and just sort of say, hey, man, take us home, right? When I played, obviously, at UCF, I was that guy for us. Like, we're going to put the ball in BJ's hands, to close the game out. Or if we fall down by 7 or 8, we're just going to run ball screen for BJ, and we're going to, create from there, and to be a really, really good team in college basketball, you need a guy like that. You need someone who can put the ball in his hands and, kind of say, hey, man, if we're down, you can get us back in it. And if we're up, you can close it out for us. So I think you've got to look to, Brandon Mahan in certain situations. If he's playing, well that night, if you can run a few sets to get Darren Green a look, I think those are probably your main two guys, because Darius Perry has the ball so much already. I don't think that, you really want to add that to his plate as well with how he's been playing. So I think Darren Green and Brandon Mahan are probably your best bet, Mike.
Usually we come out of your segment and talk about women's basketball. I want to mention it to you. Behind a team-high 19 points from Diamond Battles, the women moved to 9-1 in the AAC, 17-3 overall. They hold Houston to 44 points, a 54-44 win. They continue to show stout defense, and there are some players between Diamond and Masani Kaba, AAC Player of the Week, that just lock in and have an intensity out on that court.
Yeah, for any of the viewers who haven't watched the UCF women's basketball team play, if you're looking for passion, if you're looking for a competitive team who's going to give it all they got, Coach Abe's ball club is the team for you to watch, and especially, and that's in all of women's college basketball. Nobody plays harder than them, and from my experiences when I was there, nobody practices harder than them. I mean, they are energy, they are yelling, they are screaming, they're diving on the floor, loose balls, all of that, 40 minutes the entire game. So you got to give a lot of respect and credit to those girls, because unlike men's basketball, where we get pretty good turnouts for every game. I mean, they don't get a huge turnout, right? They don't get a lot of fans in the gym every night. And those girls those women go out there and create that energy for themselves in the gym. And the fans that do show up to support them, they give them all that they have out there on that floor. So you got to give a lot of love and props to the women's basketball team. And hopefully they can, get in the women's March Madness, and hopefully they can, win a conference title here, with, UConn out of the league. They have a chance now.
How's skills training going? What do you got going on there?
It's going good. So I'm doing skills training as well, still doing that. Stay on the lookout for me at the home game Monday night versus Tulsa. I might be on the call for ESPN Plus, so keep a lookout for that.
Oh,
yep.
Really?
That, guys, just keep a lookout. All right, I know I just said it. Just keep a lookout. I'm not saying
Somehow I can hear Mike saying on the podcast this week that you got your launch right here, and he helped make you all that you are. I can hear him taking some credit for that.
So
Who you got in the Super Bowl on Sunday?
Yeah, so I'm going with the Rams. It's been odd because the Bengals have been this Cinderella story, kind of from 2 years ago, going from worst to first. And a lot of people have kind of got behind the Bengals now. And a lot of people are choosing them as the favorite when they're obviously not the better team. But me, I'm going with the Rams. I think the Rams defensive line, like I've been saying for weeks, is too much. Aaron Donald, Von Miller. I think Matthew Stafford, if he shows up and plays just an average game, Mike, I'm just asking for an average game, fellas. Plays an average game, doesn't turn the ball over. I think the Rams will come out on top. But I would love to see, Joe Burrow get his, his first Super Bowl as a young player. But I've got to roll with the Rams in this one. I think they have a little more maturity.
Robert,
what about the halftime show? Who are you looking forward to most? Snoop, Dre, Eminem? Who's your guy?
I mean, you can't go wrong with any of those three, Mike. I mean, Snoop, Dre, and Eminem. I mean, that's like Adam, Trace, and Mike. I mean, you can't go wrong, brother.
Good one.
Go wrong.
Adam racked that one up for the promo reel.
Done.
That was it right there.
Yeah.
Robert just said, greatness, BJ on the call Monday, and no doubt maybe mugging for the kiss cam on Valentine's night at the arena. BJ, good luck with that if it happens. And, remember, you know everything you know because of Mike.
Hey, Mike, I'm not going to go that far, but I love you. All right.
BJ, thanks for joining us this week.
All right.
That's good. Good for him. He's got an ease in front of the camera and the mic, so glad to hear that for him. Men on Monday with that rescheduled game at Tulsa. Women have a big one on the road at Tampa Saturday. Some more on 4 points are up for grabs in that one. Then they have Wichita State Wednesday. They got a little separation between them and the Cows. This could really clinch the American for the night. So that's going to be a tight one over in Tampa. Softball isn't a tight one. 6-6 as they go to the 7th with ranked Georgia team. So Knights have a big opening weekend. Had opportunity. You could find that little tease here, YouTube channel. Subscribe to the Sons of UCF YouTube channel. That's where my one-on-one with Coach Cindy Ball Malone learned more about the 2022 Knights, and also had opportunity to speak with the starting pitcher from tonight's game, Gianna Mancha, on what she hopes that she'll focus in on 2022.
A lot of big teams in the schedule that we have, and so learning to deal with some situations that might not be the best for me or for the team. In terms of, maybe we get a couple of losses or just some failures that we're going to go throughout the season. So just staying composed and keeping our confidence up and knowing that, we just the process that we've been through and the preparation that we've had this entire time and keep going with that.
Home games with Minnesota, Fresno State, Longwood, and Liberty coming up. Packed weekend out at the Plex. And again, 6-6. It's been back and forth with Georgia on ESPN Plus tonight. A couple of kudos to first Women's Tennis Player of the Week, Noelle Sadan. And I'm the one that wrote it. I can't say it. Sadanova. How about that? Good?
That's what I was gonna say.
And Renaya Jones, back-to-back AAC Track Athlete of the Week. Let's open up the mailbag. Any video questions? Any walk and talks?
No, none.
Sit and spins?
No videos, no sitting. That's another show. No questions from the video mailbag this week.
Yeah. See, Mike, that could be your breakout thing. You could do a little sit and spin tease.
That's because Mike needs a breakout. That's fine.
Yeah, that could be his breakout. Our buddy Christian Simmons at Uniform Guru. Really good question. Does the same quarterback start the season opener and the season finale?
I'm going to go no, Trace. I did some crack research here. In the last 6 years, 4 of the 6 seasons, that did not happen. In 16, it did not happen. In 18, it didn't happen. In 19 and 21. So I'm going to play the numbers here. I'm going to go with a no. Although I have no idea who those people will be. I'm going to go with a no.
Yeah, I wanted to say no too. 1 for injuries, 2 because we don't even know who the starting quarterback is right now to start the year. So it could be any one of these guys. Maybe one of these freshmen come in. Castellanos we've seen mentioned. It wouldn't be the first time a true freshman came in and took some playing time.
Are you a fan of the 2 quarterback team? Because you could see an argument there for Mikey Keene and the use of John Rice Plumlee.
I'm not personally. I think, especially at quarterback, it's a rhythm thing, right? So if you get somebody in a rhythm, and we saw this a ton this year. I mean, the Joey Gatewood get out of the game, guys. Please raise your hand, because we saw that a bunch this year. We felt like we were in a rhythm, and you break that rhythm. So I would prefer not to do it. If you want to do it like in series, maybe. But I think if a guy gets in a rhythm, gets the hot hand, I think you ride who that person is. So I'd prefer as pick one, and that kind of be our guy. If you need one play, I heard Parker Navarro has feet. So if you need his feet at some point, maybe bring those in. But
he's the guy.
I don't want to keep rotating and figuring out from series to series who's going to play.
Yeah, I don't really like it either. It works once every 10 years. Like it worked with the Gators with Tebow and Chris Leak, but you don't really see it working too often anywhere else. Usually they say you have two quarterbacks, you have no quarterback. So I say pick a guy, stick with him. If you want to run a gimmick every once in a while with a running quarterback, okay, like around the goal line, but other than that, I don't like it.
But John Rice Plumlee's not coming here to watch, right? So they're going to use him in the offense, and it's going to be more than just the Joey Gatewood play. Whether that means he's the starter. Nightalorian, our buddy the Nightalorian, asked, how many quarterbacks in a quarterback room is too few? Too many. Just right. I don't know how many quarterbacks we have in that quarterback room. I've
got 5. You need a starter, you need a capable backup, you need a change of pace guy, you need a young guy, and you need a walk-on guy to wear the green jersey. So I got 5.
You need 3 guys that are able to go out there where the team is not going to lose a step if the other 2 guys come in. Anything more than that, you're just asking for too much, I think. You got to be like Alabama if you want to have 4 or 5 guys that are come in and be superstars. We need a guy that can start, 2 guys that are capable to come in and keep the ship moving if something happens.
Ship moving.
That was ship. Reading lips. At Austin Heff, who will be RB2 next season and why? And at UCF_weekly said, and why is the answer to that, Mark Anthony Richardson? I say, don't sleep on RJ Harvey. I know we haven't seen much of him, but I like him emerging.
This feels like a trick question because you also have to take into account situation, because I think Johnny Richardson brings a completely different style of play. Maybe that's a third down back. Maybe it's a 2nd and 9. You want to run a screen pass. So I think this is a bit of a trick question. If the question is simply the first running back goes down, and maybe that's Bowser, and who comes in to take those carries, I think Mark Anthony Richards is probably the head and shoulders leader of that right now. I know RJ Harvey played well in spring game, but we forget there was no Mark Anthony Richards at that point. Bowser, I don't think, was ready to play in spring game. So the carries had to go to somebody. So I'm not saying RJ wouldn't be the guy, but I think it is probably Mar has the upper hand right now. But I think it's a trick question depending upon if it's a situational type of play.
Yeah, we all agree Bowser is the one. I think Johnny is a great compliment to him, his speed to Bowser's power. If something were to happen to Bowser, I think you replace him with another big guy like that. Don't count out Jordan McDonald. I can't wait to see that guy play. He seems like a big, powerful guy who can also take it the distance himself.
Knowing the injury past that Isaiah Bowser's had, what would you think is the ideal number of touches for him in a game? You don't want him to exceed 20, and he had games where he did exceed 20 and was just a bruiser, but you got to think that they don't want him carrying the ball that many times, right?
He exceeded 30 in a couple of games, I think, right? Yeah, I don't think they want him to. I think he might want to prove his durability, because obviously that's probably the knock that he needs to most worry about in terms of his pro potential. But I think if you get him in that 20 to 25 sweet spot, and then you peel off some carries, 10 for Mark Anthony and 4 or 5 for Johnny, whatever that split is. So give me somewhere in that 20-25 range. It also depends if we're winning, Trace. If we're winning and we have to hand him the ball so we can just fall forward for a couple of yards and keep the clock moving, I think those are different kind of carries. So it really depends, I guess, on situation. But give me 20 to 25.
It's a tricky situation because you don't want to beat him up, but he also is a guy that gets better as the game goes along.
Yeah.
He's better carries 20 through 30 than he was carries 1 through 10. So in games where we're blowing guys out, a Bethune-Cookman game or one of these season opening games, you got to get him out of there at halftime and just save him for these tough ones at the end where you're going to need him to grind out a win.
At UCF_blue626, who amongst the running backs, quarterbacks, and DBs will be moved to linebacker in 2022? He says, trick question, because any athlete good enough to successfully switch will hit the portal before agreeing to a switch. But we keep talking about Joey Gatewood maybe as a tight end. back to the question about how many quarterbacks or too many quarterbacks in the quarterback room, that one may be somebody we could move to another position.
I didn't see a whole lot of fluidity in Joey Gatewood that would lead me to think he's going to be good in open space tackling somebody. You're probably looking at somebody like a DB. I don't know if Dylan Lester has any eligibility left. I'm not sure if he graduated or if he's coming back. I think he's a bigger guy who can probably hit somebody. But I don't. Maybe a running back. I know we have Anthony Williams. He was a freshman this year. He's a big kid out of Orlando. I think Lake Brantley. I don't know his size, but maybe somebody along those lines. But I wouldn't think we're in a position where we're going to do a lot of position switching, because I'm pretty sure the transfer portal door will go wide open after that.
Yeah, if you're talking about moving a guy to linebacker, it's got to be one of the running backs. You need somebody with power. We just spoke to one earlier. Antoine Poe told us he played running back in high school. Remember a guy named Jonathan Davis was a very good running back. Moved him to linebacker. He could hit some people back there too. That's going to be the position you look at, and that's the position that we're most loaded at. So if anybody has to move, it's got to be one of those running backs.
At Grajales Debbie on Twitter, who do you think makes the NFL? I still like Kalia Davis as getting that shot.
Define makes the NFL on a 53-man roster at the start of the season, gets an invite to a training camp of some sort, or some sort of a mini camp.
I believe I asked her for clarification, and I think she said drafted.
Kalia Day was probably the best option. Maybe a big cat flyer in the late rounds every year. I mean, we can all just go through the list right now. There will be a UCF Knight invited to Jaguars minicamp, so just pick whatever one you want at this point. But in terms of making a roster or draft it, Kalia. But again, coming off a knee injury like that, I mean, obviously some teams are probably going to be a bit hesitant as they look at his medicals. You would think Big Cat may have some name recognition. Maybe he sticks with somebody, but outside of that, I think it's pretty slim pickings, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's not going to be as like it was last year when we had 7 guys go to the NFL. This speaks to the recruiting that Josh Heupel did while he was here. Now these are his classes, the guys that are upperclassmen, and there's not too many to pick from that you think are going to go to the next level.
As Coach Malzahn said, you can never have enough quality depth. At Golden Knight _2, which sports team will have a better season? Women's basketball, softball, or baseball? Still think it's women's basketball, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably basketball, softball, baseball in that order. I mean, the softball program obviously has been on a good run these last couple of years. No reason to think they can't at least continue to make some noise there. Basketball, like we talked about, they're certainly a team that probably criminally is not in the top 25. I'm not sure if there's some sort of a sweeping investigation coming soon, but we've got to figure that one out. And really, that just leaves Greg Lovelady and his warming seat. But I know Mike doesn't want to fire the seat up yet, but it's a little.
Mike always has a seat on warm.
Basketball, women's basketball is the easy answer right now. They're already almost done with the season, and we know that they're doing great. Baseball is a surprise. Baseball is one of those where you come into the season, you don't think much is going to happen, and they end up having a good year. And then the years you think they're going to do well, they go in the tank. Last year was not a good year. The year before, we were very good. We were starting out 15-3 before the season got canceled with COVID. Who knows where that season would have went? But you never know. We could be due for a surprise. And baseball is a lot about getting confidence, getting on a roll, getting hot, and the pitchers stay hot, then anything can happen.
Rapid fire from Oreo Speedwagon with a great Twitter handle. Fire Dawkins, yes or no? Big no.
Maybe.
It's a yes or no. It's a yes or no.
I've told you all year. I mean, he has a chance, though. You win the conference tournament, you get to the tournament, I'm not firing him.
At 911 _black _gold, what has to happen for fans and donors to actually invest in men's basketball, not just call for a coach to be fired when this underfunded program inevitably doesn't improve? And I'm 100% behind that. You can keep changing coaches. It doesn't change the support.
In my mind, two things have to happen. You either need to win and garner a bunch of support and a bunch of momentum forward, or there has to be a bit of a coaching change a la Gus Malzahn comes in and everyone gets all fired up. I'm not saying that's what I want to happen, but I think those are two scenarios where you'll start to see people get a little more galvanized around the program. The reality is we're in that like purgatory. I'll use the NFL as an example. We're in that 8-8 every year purgatory, right? Where you're barely missing the playoffs, or you're barely making the playoffs, but you're not getting a first draft pick, but you're not going to the Super Bowl. You're just kind of existing in that middle ground. I think that's just going to breed apathy, which which is where the program's at. So you either need to start winning big, and that's when people come out, or there has to be some sort of an excitable change that people want to get behind and start throwing dollars at. I think those are probably the best two scenarios if you want to have people begin to open their wallets to support the program.
I would just argue that they didn't really sell out the joint during the BJ Taylor Taco Fall 2019 run. So they weren't selling out then either.
Fair.
Yeah, but that team didn't get hot until the end of the year when they beat Houston and Cincinnati late. And let's not act like we sell out every football game either. There's plenty of games this year that were not sold out. What really needs to happen is this fan base needs to get older and make more money. And that's what it is. Right now, we're a very young fan base, and people are not – the average fan is, 35, 36 years old. They have 2 young kids at home. They can't make it to all these games. The older we get, the more money these people start making, then they start investing more.
At Deportes Man 85, who is a UCF athlete Night Nation does not talk enough about? Diamond battles. Put me down for diamond battles.
Renaya Jones. Could be an Olympic gold medalist one day.
Good one.
Tom Jostin. I don't know. I didn't even think about it. But, he's got some pop in his bat.
Did some interviews at Baseball Media Day that I'll be throwing up on my Twitter handle, and we're a little over a week away from the Knights' home opener against Siena. Mike, do you remember Siena's nickname?
No.
Saints?
St. Bernard's. Saints. And do we have a breaking news sounder? Could we get one of those? Because apparently, Mike, you shook up Twitter world this week at Brian W. Peterson. Now that UCF Mike has finally followed me on Twitter, have I peaked in life? Surely it must all be downhill. You went on some sort of flurry where you started following people, and they were like, he didn't follow me before? And then they were kind of insulted, and then they were glad, and everybody's happy that you're following them.
Yeah, for the longest time, I didn't follow anybody. I followed basically the people that reported on UCF. I think I was only following like 50 people. And I bumped that thing up to like 450. I followed about 400 people in about 10 minutes. And, it's made my timeline a little more interesting. I'll tell you that.
I bet. Because you were getting a lot of LA Dodger news from Juan Toribio. so suddenly it was,
fair.
Wow. Yeah.
That's fair. I just brought Brian are we calling this uphill? So if you're asking if that means you're going downhill, the UCF Mike follow that's uphill for you.
That is the gold
We should
standard.
talk. We should talk after the show.
That is a blue check mark if I've ever heard one, just to get
Exactly.
the UCF Mike follow. We had Antoine Poe, who, again, soft plug here, you're going to release the Out of the Vault
YouTube
interview on the Sons of UCF YouTube channel, but a good one this week on the pod as well.
Yeah, I stopped doing this a long time ago, and shame on me. I should bring these back. But I actually have a clip from the interview with Rashad Jeanty this week, who played at UCF in the late early 2000 era, and he had a really interesting story, and he was very candid in his answer about his time at UCF, and this one just really resonated. And I got a handful of messages. I don't know if you got any from people saying that the way he talked openly about what he went through and kind of his end at UCF was kind of touching. So I want to bring that clip back. So here's Rashad from episode 168.
I lost my cards that was dealt to me. You know what I mean? I didn't take advantage of a free scholarship, a free education, as far as school wise. And that's what happened. You know what I mean? I flunked out of school, and hopefully if any kids may be listening to this podcast, don't be afraid to ask for help, because that was my pitfall. I was afraid to ask for help.
More insights from Rashad Jeanty. That was a good one. Someone that you don't immediately think of, and I like that you bring guys back that we don't automatically think of as podcast guests.
Yeah, former Cincinnati Bengal too, so he's rooting for his Bengals. But I just the openness and honesty in that whole conversation. He talks a lot. He tells some fun stories. He got cursed out by a coach at a rival school, which I think is funny. But I know, Mike, I enjoyed it. I know you did as well.
Yeah, I always love talking to the guys that were there when we were there. We had some of the same experiences around campus and stuff like that. And this guy went on to the NFL, had a pretty nice career in the NFL. So it was good to catch up with Rashad.
Yeah, as we did catch up with Antoine Poe earlier, and we thank BJ Taylor for stopping by. Extra innings, softball out at the Plex. Georgia and the Knights go extras, 6-6, heading on into extras. Of course, a full weekend of softball, and we'll bring you more both on the pod. And don't forget, subscribe to the Suns YouTube channel. And now we will fade out. Mike, you want to spin?
I was just going to.
On a little spin. Adam, do you spin?
Peace.
I could, but who's going to hit the button if I spin? I'm literally the one that has to end the show.
Can I go
I'll do
left?
that
I don't
now.
know if I can
I'm going to
go
do
left.
that now, though.
Seems like a good time right now.